can't stress enough what a miracle and what a blessing it is to be able to transcend, to leave the physical body and rise into other dimensions of reality. People who have not had the experience will insist that this is not possible, that is simply an illusion, a dream or a hallucination. But it is the absolute opposite. Instead of being awake, as we are in normal waking life, experience is often super awake, more awake than awake, with a clarity of mind and perception which supersedes anything experienced via our cognitive tools of the physical body. All our senses are sharpened. Instead of having a 130-degree physical vision, people often report of having a 360-degree vision. Our communication transcends spoken words. We have telepathic communication. When we leave our physical body, we almost always enter a finer vibratory copy of our physical world, which is mostly referred to as the astral world. To get an idea what the astral world looks like, all you need to do is open your front door, go outside and look around. That is what the astral world looks like. People who astral travel often think they are in the physical world, and often they don't believe that they have an out-of-body experience and have to convince themselves that they have not magically been transported to another place in the physical world in their physical body. I personally performed the hover test, which means lifting off the ground and floating up into the air to make absolutely sure. That is why some people who have died don't always realize that they have died, because everything feels so physical. It is only when their death elevates them into a much higher state of consciousness, which is often described as a heaven state, where they are surrounded by a feeling of love and of homecoming, that they realize they have transitioned from their physical plane, or when friends or relatives welcome them who have died and who introduce them to their new state. We often find such descriptions being reported by people who had a near-death experience. But that does not always happen. For a large number of people, nothing really changes because their environment doesn't change, and they may spend a considerable time in what is called a near-Earth level, where everything looks and feels exactly as it did on Earth, while they were still alive. Most people who die go through an adjustment phase, especially if they have been sick or died unexpectedly. Much is dependent on their state of mind when they died. People will find that their new environment is a reflection of their general state of feeling, mental attitude, beliefs, prejudices, interests, moral standing, characteristics like prevailing emotions like appreciation, joys, empathy and love, as well as resentments, anger, hate or belligerence. Negative attitudes don't allow higher energy to manifest in their environment, and as a consequence, their surrounding is often very dark, twilight. and can feel very chilly or even cold. It can even rain or storm. The vegetation may be sparse, the grass yellow or even dead, the landscapes bleak, deserted with cloudy skies. Urban environments may consist of sprawling, intimidating buildings, high walls, houses with holes instead of windows and no light shining out. But the opposite is true as well. Positive feelings and energy transports people into bright, summery and beautiful environments with lush vegetation, populated by attractive and young-looking people, animals. Cities with incredible architecture, art and vibrant commercial activities, where people browse to fulfill their dreams, with parties and entertainment galore. For most people, this is seen like heaven itself. But there are many gradings of environment, some simply a bland reflection of our Earth, some a reflection of our Earth during dark November days, some a little brighter and some like Earth at night with few bright spots. But even here we find people gathering, doing their best, brightening and lifting up the atmosphere like music and dance bands to make it their mission to lift inhabitants out of their gloom. We find many people in these regions known as helpers who try to guide people out of their gloomy states and introduce them into higher regions. Some of them are astral travelers who have been enlisted to provide such services here, and they are often working in conjunction with astral helpers who have passed on and are offering a kind of social services here. Our media, movies and religions have often provided a distorted view of the afterlife state. Fortunately, over recent years we are arriving at a consensus of what the afterlife looks like, coming from a vast number of different sources, so that we now have a more comprehensive image of the worlds that await us after our physical body comes to an end. This knowledge should help us to see life in a completely different way, mainly that life does not end and that we do not have to concern us with the absence of our departed loved ones because they are still here, though unseen and unheard because our physical senses are so limited. But the greatest mystery of the afterlife state still remains largely unexplored. We have barely scratched the surface. We don't know how and what creates the worlds and the infinity and varieties of manifestations. It is only when we experience the expansion of our senses and feelings, when entering into and fully own our astral body, that we get a better understanding how these worlds function. The physical senses, by comparison, are blunt tools, only performing the minimum to help us survive in the physical world. We often hear astral travelers proclaiming that they are more awake than awake. Everything becomes clearer, sharper. It is as if a layer of fog has been removed from our senses. The same also applies to our cognitive abilities. For example, the experience that waking life appears to be a mere dream by comparison. Some people having had a near-death experience often report of having woken up, arrived home, and that their life had simply been a dream. People quickly lose interest in their past once they are fully awoken to their new life and embrace the incredible opportunities which expand the range of experiences. It is quite common for people to choose an afterlife routine which is barely different from the life they have just lived on earth, with the same old habits, shrouding themselves in ignorance and wanting to have little to do that is outside their comfort zone, of things that are out of the ordinary. Spontaneous manifestations like holding a cup of tea as a result of the intent without having to put the kettle on is quickly integrated as a given without needing further thought or investigation. If somebody changes their appearance right in front of their eyes, this is simply a part of their reality needing no further consideration, so they don't give it much thought. People still live in a dream world just as they do here, and for many the afterlife environment, regardless of how strange it is readily accepted, just as we accept events in normal dreams, regardless of how nonsensical they are. The biggest problem is a general lack of awareness. For example, when people finding themselves in a negative environment, perhaps with their hair falling out, the skin aging, or showing signs of disease, it's their inability to connect it with their state of mind. This is one of the greatest pitfalls for uneducated people in the afterlife state, and they often rely on helpers, astral social workers, who help them to raise their awareness or educate them so they can get out of their self-inflicted predicament. The tendency for people, once they are out of their unpleasant condition, is to return to their habitual world without any thought of bettering themselves or advancing. This lack of conscious awareness often leads for them to fall into a sleep when their latent energies of their soul take over their progress, without their individual ego having any idea of what is taking place. They may simply succumb to a hazy dream until they find themselves emerging in a baby's body on the physical plane and then start their journey all over. It is only the bold, the adventurous, the investigatives, the artists, the scientists who are driven by curiosity and inspired by the subtle stream of their higher selves whose world begin to open up and whose horizons will start to expand. Whatever their field of personal interest, it will provide the gateway to open a new world. A musician, for example, may become aware of the subtle undercurrents of sounds which they will find in the astral nature, listening to the subtle tune of the wind, the murmuring of the brook, or the rustling of the leaves, or they may simply be drawn to those who pursue the art of music and entertainment. So for each interest, there is a widening and opening to completely new worlds of experience, aided by the expansion of the sensory perception. It is then that people begin to journey onwards towards unfolding their potential. And when they are ready for the new sojourn on earth, they will be equipped with talents which will distinguish them from the rest of the crowd. So we will see that the whole of life, not just life on earth, is part of a growth process as an individual being, aiding our soul in the expansion of consciousness.